Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
All right, next we'll do roll call. So Deanna, if you could conduct roll call, please.
Member Byrne?
Present.
Member Byron?
Here.
Member Evans? Member Alt Moriarty?
Here.
Member Keeshan? Member Lannis?
Present.
Member Olson? Member Riley?
Present.
Member Alt LeBeau?
Present.
Well, thank you. Member Simmons? Member Wilson?
Here.
Vice Chair Weeks?
Here.
And Chair Sarmiento.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum with Evans, Keeshan, and Simmons absent.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Deanna, have we received any written or remote public comment?
We have received 2 public comments that were written, and they were distributed before the meeting today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of today's agenda? If so, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you.
We do have 1 public comment.
This is Member Evans. I was not unmuted to say that I'm here.
Thank you, Member Evans.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have we received any other? No, that's it.
We have not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public comment item. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes a summary of actions from the September 22, 2025.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on the public comment, or should I say it at the end of the meeting?
We have committee member comments at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which is the summary of actions from the September 22, 2025 meeting. Are there any changes or comments from committee members on the consent calendar? All right, seeing none, Deanna, are there any public comments on that you received for this item?
We have not received any public, written, or virtual comment.
Okay, thank you. If you could conduct or actually, before you do that, do you have a motion and a second from any committee members?
What was the consent calendar? I didn't see it in the materials.
Oh,
I mean, was there anything on it?
It's just the minutes from the prior meeting.
Were they included?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll move we approve the meeting minutes from the prior meeting.
Okay, have a motion from Vice Chair Weeks.
Second.
All right, second from Committee Member Byrne. Okay, Deanna, if you could take a roll call vote,
Yes.
please.
Member Byrne?
Aye.
Member Byron?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Member Evans?
Aye.
Member Foster? Oh, sorry, Member Moriarty?
Approve.
Thank you. Member Keeshan? Member Lannis?
Aye.
Member Olson? Member Riley?
Yes.
Member Riker? Member Simmons? Member Wilson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Weeks?
Yes.
And Chair Sarmiento.
Yes.
Okay, we have a majority of the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to regular agenda items. Item 4, the only item on the regular agenda is an update of the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. Yeah, update, which will be introduced by Colin Clark.
Sure. So good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Colin Clark with CCTA staff. So today we have David Mann here and Ingrid. If you guys want to come up and give the presentation. So there's an informational update on the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, including the bike path pilot that was recently extended through 2028, and also the Richmond Forward, RSR Forward projects. There'll be an update on that.
Good morning. Sorry about the cough there. All right, getting used to different boardrooms here and getting set up here. Appreciate the time. I'm David Mann. I'm from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. I'm one of the directors responsible for the capital delivery program, also our toll bridge program, and also our express lane program. So a lot of our engineering functions that we have at the agency are within my purview. And with me today, as Colin mentioned, we have Ingrid Supit, who is our project manager for the Richmond Bridge corridor. And thank you for having me today to provide a brief overview of where we're at, specifically with the modified pilot that we've been working on with Caltrans since 2018 on the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, and just want to provide some of the initial insights that we've learned with the recent changes that we've made starting at the end of October. So just as context, I want to lay out just our overall approach on the bridge corridor. As many of you are probably aware, the BCDC, the Bay Area Conservation District, approved our permit to modify the operations of the Richmond. Approved our permit to approved our modified permit to modify the operations on the upper deck of the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge to allow return of the emergency shoulder during specific time periods, and also made permanent the lower deck part-time lane operations. As part of just kind of setting context, why we decided to take the approach was in three different specific areas that we felt that were really important in terms of what BATA and Caltrans have been really looking at improving the corridor for all users. Number one, we really thought about making sure that we have a long-term solution for the corridor, recognizing that traffic in the corridor has returned from pre-pandemic levels. And we also wanted to make sure that we can find a solution, as you currently know, that is currently a pilot. We can find a long-term solution that we can have on the bridge itself. Secondly, we wanted to continue to enhance access to the bridge. So we found opportunities to work with the city of Richmond to close some of the gaps and identify some funding opportunities to advance two particular projects in the city of Richmond. And then lastly, we wanted to have an opportunity to make sure that we understand how well the access has been on the bridge and how a part-time operations would be. So all that in totality has, really driven our approach in terms of where we're at today. So just context setting again, just for the bridge itself. Starting on the left that you see on the screen, the original pilot started in 2018, where the lower deck was converted into a part-time use lane for the eastbound commute from 2 to 7 p.m. That project has proven very successful, and we've been able to reduce congestion on the Marin side. About a year after the part-time lane, the upper deck, as you're probably all aware of, we installed a movable barrier to allow 24/7 continuous multi-use path on the upper deck as a pilot. And during this last 3 to 4 years, we've been working closely with the Department of Caltrans and also our research partner, UC Berkeley, to understand some of our initial observations and some of the impacts that we're seeing as it relates to the work, the modifications that we did. Over the last year or so, we recognized, based on the reports that was provided from UC Berkeley, we recognized that there were potentially a little bit of traffic impacts on the upper deck as relates to having no longer having a shoulder for emergency breakdown vehicles, and also a little bit of tighter corridor. And then subsequently, on the lower deck, as I mentioned before, we felt that the performance was adequate and definitely delivered value for the commuters there. So as a result, we're working with the Bay Area Toll Authority, which is part of MTC, on Caltrans. We did work with BCDC to modify its operations of the upper deck to allow a emergency shoulder Monday through Thursday, and then during Thursday through Sunday, where the traffic demand is less, we would reopen the bike path. That was based on information we collected of previous 4 or 5 years in terms of path usage and traffic patterns that we saw. And then, of course, you can see on this middle there of the screen, we also, when the path was closed, we provided a free shuttle service. We also, as part of that action, made the lower deck part-time lane use permanent, so it's no longer a pilot. And so, the question is, what's changed, and why are we taking this approach? And I think I mentioned it earlier that we are looking for a long-term solution for the Richmond Bridge and the corridor itself. And so we're currently if you look on the right, we're currently working with Caltrans to start the environmental process of a potential solution that could be a part-time HOV lane during the Monday through Thursday hours, and then, of course, having the bike path remain open. That process just recently started, and as we will be reporting back to BCDC on our progress over the next few years with that. I want to point out that this modified pilot and our approach was to gain experience with some type form of the long-term solution. So we'll certainly be continuing to study how this operation that's currently out there is working on the corridor. And just a little bit more details of the actual operations that's out there today. It's, as I highlighted, that started at the end of October. It's currently, based on our permit with BCDC, it's slated to end at the end of 2028. From the hours of, essentially overnight on Sunday, around midnight, the Caltrans crews will move the barrier. Just starting from left to right, we'll move the barrier over to the edge of the travelway and then open up the emergency shoulder. Starting at Monday morning, there will be that free shuttle service from, I believe, 6 to 8 o'clock as well. And then that's the condition I'll be in. Starting Thursday afternoon, around about noon or so, Caltrans starts the process with their contractor to move the movable barrier back from the edge to the edge of the number 2 lane there, and then that will then restore the bike path over the weekend hours, which will then run from Thursday from about 2 o'clock to about midnight, as I said, on Sunday. What you see on the right there is kind of a chart in terms of the number of days available. That particular piece of the bridge is available for use. As you can see, that the emergency breakdown shoulder is available for motorists about half the year, and then the other half is available for path users. Next slide. Here's a quick highlight in terms of the free bike shuttle that's available. As I mentioned, it operates from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We did work with some of our bicycle community partners to get some feedback in terms of some of the users and types of bikes that we could need to accommodate. And as I mentioned, this is a pilot, and this is our initial deployment that we started in October. The shuttle can take about approximately 10 passengers. We are trying to align with other bicycle shuttle services provided. Small pets, service animals are allowed. Car seats with the proper attachments are allowed too as well for younger riders. As far as the trailer design goes, we heard from the bike groups that flexibility was very, very important. And based on that, we designed a very I would say a trailer that should be able to accommodate most of the bikes that we've heard that were using it. So that includes standard bikes, e-bikes, recumbent bikes, bikes potentially with fenders, trikes as well. And all those could be securely attached to the bike trailer as they go across the bridge. Based on our initial work with the vendor and the bike community, this is what our initial limitations are. The bikes, we're estimating about 120 pounds would be the max. The width and length, we do need to maintain, 40 inches wide is about as the maximum we can accommodate initially, about 120 inches long, which is a very long bike, is the max. We also are asking that there are no gas-powered vehicles, but e-bikes, as I mentioned, are certainly allowed for that. I already mentioned the hours. This is what you see on the left there in the blue is a sign that's out there in the field currently. It points to the hours of operations of the path. It also talks the availability of the shuttle that we provide. The headway is about 20 to 25 minutes, as that's our target. That is subject to change on traffic conditions and availability, but that is our target from day one. We also have a lot of information working with BCDC in terms of the website that we're going to use to advise folks of what's allowed on the free bike shuttle. You can see there's the QR code as well that allows users to access the real-time GPS tracking app to alert folks of where the shuttle is currently in its status. The map shows the 2 shuttle stops there on both the Richmond side and also on the Marin side. Both those stops are within the Caltrans right-of-way. One of them is a bike, the transit stop near Castro Street and 580. And then on the Marin side, just as you get off the bridge on Main Street, there's also a small little lot that the bike shuttle utilizes. Next slide. So the shuttle's been in operations, and along with the current configuration of the lanes for the last few weeks here, we were able to work with our shuttle provider to obtain some initial understanding of how the usage so far. You can see blue is the first week, so October 27th to 31st, and then we have data from the following subsequent week. You can see this is the daily number of boardings as the shuttle is operated for those last couple of weeks. I would say that based on our understanding of prior bike usage, it's relatively in line of what we've observed previously. Just moving forward, we're going to continue to solicit feedback. Shuttle users are offered an opportunity to fill out a SurveyMonkey form to let us know how their experiences are. And we're also working with Caltrans and UC Berkeley to further understand any impacts to the traffic conditions and safety out there. We are taking a very close look of how well moving that barrier now twice a week works as well. It does take some effort with the Caltrans team in coordination with the California Highway Patrol. Lastly, as I mentioned, this is a pilot, and there's always opportunities to solicit feedback. We are continuing to work and updating our trailer design to accommodate different bikes and get a few additional attachments that we have. So we anticipate to add a few improvements to the bike trailer itself, likely in the month of December, when during the holiday season, where the path will remain open. Lastly, I just want to highlight the city of Richmond. It's my understanding is taking forward a resolution to be able to be the project lead for a couple projects that are receiving funding as part of this overall effort. I think that they're taking it for them in the month of December. It's $10 million spread across two different projects: the Richmond Wellness Trail and the Neighborhood Complete Streets project. And it's also, and I don't want to speak for the city, it's my understanding they're trying to figure out how to navigate the contracting changes. This is due to some of the changes at the federal side, and also to understanding how much money they have available so they can scale up to the appropriate project. But this is something that we did commit to as part of the BCDC permit, and making sure that we have continued access to the bridge and the bridge corridor itself and the Bay Trail. And lastly, I just want to touch base on some of the more other activities that we have out there currently. We are in the midst of what we call the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge Forward Project. And there's a couple things going on. Number one, we are going to get rid of the toll booths and go to what we call open road tolling. And then that's the picture on the bottom right that you see on your screen there. Hopefully that we can have a little bit better flow through the toll plaza area when this is all done. And then secondly, we are also extending the HOV lane, which currently starts at the bridge, but we're going to extend it back towards into the city of Richmond. And hopefully that will encourage, number one, mode shift and increase transit reliability as well. So you can see on the screen, these are some of the expected time savings as it relates to that project, specifically as it relates to our the buses, the Golden Gate Transit buses that will use that corridor. We believe that there will be a huge benefit there. The project is actually going to start construction later this month, and we hope to have the toll booths removed and into operations sometime in the middle to mid-late 2026. And then lastly, there are also a couple other projects that on the bottom right there, bottom of the screen there, the Richmond Bridge Forward, there's a couple of other projects that we're working on in terms of improving multimodal access. The Cutting Boulevard Transit Signal Priority Improvement Project is also underway currently. We're working with the city of Richmond to increase transit reliability by providing transit signal priority and also making bus stop improvements along Cutting Boulevard. And we feel, again, that will hopefully reduce the number of single occupancy users on the corridor. So with that, I really thank you for your time and just providing an information update to everybody here. Certainly open to some questions from the committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. First, I'll turn it over to committee members if they have any comments on the presentation. Brianna, or committee member Byrne.
Thank you, David. You had mentioned that there is an increase in response time for emergency vehicles. And I was wondering if during that review process, just the number of serious injury or fatal collisions was looked at as well, and whether or not there is a difference between before and with that pilot project.
I think. So thank you for that. So UC Berkeley was our partner in terms of looking at the original pilot from starting in 2019 on to 2023. Those particular metrics were looked at. I don't have off the top of my head what the specifics in terms of serious fatals. I would say that over the part of the reason we're continuing the pilot was that we would like to better understand various incident management issues and potential crash issues. There is a little bit of a lag of getting data in that particular space. And so we're working with Caltrans and CHP to make sure that we have that information moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, any other committee member comments? Committee member Lannis.
I have a question about the shuttle. Is it possible to move the pickup and drop-off location on the Richmond side?
So thanks for that question. As I mentioned, it's a pilot, right? And then we're trying to work with all the partners. I think that's something that we will evaluate as we continue. One of the advantages of the current locations that we have, they are within the Caltrans right away. So that did simplify some of the work that we need to do to make it happen. Secondly, on the Richmond side, there is connectivity to transit there. There's a transit pickup spot there for the AC transit line. And then on the Marin side, obviously that, we want folks to be able to get off the bridge, get onto and be able to use their bikes as soon as possible. But as I mentioned, we're going to solicit feedback from the users. We'll get feedback from the cities and the communities. And at that time, we can work with the cities to see if there's any potential opportunities in terms of moving the shuttle stop.
I'll provide some follow-up feedback, direct feedback. I used the shuttle. I'm testing it, and I've received some feedback from folks who are using it too. And in my experience, when I got on the Richmond side, just to go around and do a loop. Before the booth, it took about 10 to 15 minutes for that loop full of traffic. This was the second shuttle in the morning, the first day, 6:15 a.m. or so. And if you started that shuttle, and in addition to that, for people finding out at the gate that they have to turn around, that's also a conflict. But if you were able to start it near Point Molate, that would save users that 15-minute delay or so. And it would enable people to walk or bike closer to the bridge, the beginning of the bridge, which is what people ideally want to do. More biking or more walking.
So, yeah, thank you, Danny, for that feedback. So, I believe earlier in the process, we kind of like met with bike community, right? And with you, with others to kind of like solicit feedback on where the best place for the shuttle stop. And then during that process, we tested, like originally we were thinking about using the Stenmark Drive that you mentioned about like the stop in Richmond. But there's a lot of, I guess, considerations that we had to kind of like think about. Like the first one, it's really hard for a trailer to make the turn. One, and then the second is like that place, there's no really designated spot that they can just stop. Otherwise, they just have to stop on the street, right? It's not like a designated spot like at the Tewksbury. It's really a bus stop. And then the third one is because of also this Richmond Forward construction. We have to close the on-ramp for 8 months. So we won't be able to use that on-ramp, right? So that's kind of like taking into considerations, and we're starting off with like let's just try the Tewksbury stop. And as David mentioned earlier, that we are doing this pilot here, we kind of like test it out and kind of like see if there's like other locations that we can also utilize. And to address your comments about, yes, we acknowledge and we also notice that there's like a lot of traffic going on to get onto the loop on-ramp, right? That's kind of like really slowing down like the shuttle headways. And I believe, David, we work with CHP and Caltrans to kind of like monitor that location and try to kind of like do the best. Like, for instance, we kind of like want to change to make it obvious that there's no U-turn, there's no cut-through traffic, working with Caltrans and also CHP to monitor that.
Thank you. Just to make it clear too, it takes longer to hop on the shuttle than to directly bike the bridge. And while the trail is closed, there's still more delays. That traffic that I went through, the trail was closed and the traffic didn't seem to disappear.
All right, next, community member Byron.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, thank you for this presentation. I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little more about the concerns with the pilot on the upper deck. You kind of alluded to usage. What were the other concerns that you had with the bike lane?
Could you be more specific to what concerns?
You said that one of the reasons why you were changing the pilot is because of concerns that you discovered when you were evaluating it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you're referring back to the, from the condition where we had the bike path open 24/7 as a pilot. We did the study.
Right.
And as I mentioned, based on the study that we conducted, we did notice a reduction in throughput in traffic, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
that's
fewer cars or
less cars are able to get through the bridge. That's what we've noticed, a small reduction. I would say, I think 5% reduction in throughput of traffic on the bridge itself as it relates to having the bike lane in place, which means the barrier is right up against the edge of the lane. And of course, having a narrow lane there, we surmise, is one of the reasons for that.
So you're saying fewer cars were using the bridge?
No,
Or
fewer
you're
cars
saying they
are,
were
fewer
getting-
cars are able to get through the bridge on an hourly basis.
Okay, so
Sorry
that
about
was
that.
a little slower.
It goes a little slower, correct. The second thing that we notice, and this is something that is reason why we're continuing to observe as part of the pilot effort, is that emergency responder access. In discussions with Richmond Fire, Marin Fire, and the California Highway Patrol, they did have some challenges with getting to particular crashes or stalls on the bridge. And of course, getting that statistics was a little bit of a challenge in that first phase, so that's why we're continuing this effort, monitoring effort in the second phase. I do want to highlight that even over the last 3 weeks that's been since we made the change, we have observed, and we're doing a better job observing the number of vehicles that have been stalled on the emergency shoulder. I think the very first week, there have been a couple vehicles. Or last week, there were also a couple opportunities where we had vehicles broken down. And I think, having better information on that will allow us to better understand having the impacts of the bike bridge in the future, bike path in the future.
Okay. And you mentioned usage, like, was that one of the concerns? That the numbers of people that were using it?
I wouldn't say that's a great question. I wouldn't say the usage was a concern of the bike path, right? I think we all recognize that access is important. So ultimately, I would say BCDC and the Bay Area Toll Authority made their recommendations and approvals based on the numbers that they saw. But as we mentioned, we do want to continue to provide the access where it's most needed, and that's the judgment that we're trying to follow.
Okay. Well, so my second question is just that, like, we're the Countywide Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and I've been on this committee for a year. My understanding is that MTC hadn't consulted with this committee during the pilot process, and so that's true? Is this the first? Yeah, so I would really encourage MTC to continue to consult with the committee, because as you're working through the second phase of the pilot, maybe you could report back every year or something like that and just give us an update on how it's going, and we can give you feedback along the way.
Let me start first, and maybe Ingrid's been with the project a little longer. I know I recently joined the agency, but I think one thing that was very apparent at the BCDC meeting, for those that had listened, we definitely want to improve our engagement and understanding of the bike users and the city itself. So I think that's something that we're taking seriously, to make sure that we have the right stakeholders in the room and that we have the consultation. So I certainly welcome future discussions here with this committee and other bicycle advisory committees within the particular area. So I think that's something that we are going to look forward to over the next few years. As it relates to the pilot, and also, as I mentioned, the westbound improvement project, that long-term solution that's starting the environmental process, and that we'll definitely take it seriously. And that's something that the BCDC has really asked us to do. And then, Ingrid, do you have the history in the last time we've been here?
So you're right. I don't recall we came in front of you guys at the BPAC, but we presented at least a couple times with CCTA board in the past.
To CCTA.
CCTA, yeah. But as David mentioned that, because one of the requirements also working with BCDC, that we have to put front and center about the engagement with all the users, not just the motorists, not just the bikers, right? But all the users, the community. So that's what we are doing in the next phase of this pilot, is really leveraging this environmental justice analysis and engagement with stakeholders. So we're happy to kind of come back again and in front of this committee.
Thank you. And also, I'm just wondering if we could get the PowerPoint. Maybe you could send it around. Thank you.
Yes. Committee member Riley. we'll do Community Member Moriarty first.
This
and
is
then-
a quick question. In one of the slides, it showed the long-term plan is having a HOV lane in the third lane on the upper deck, but it didn't show a HOV lane on the lower deck. I was wondering why that was.
Oh, yes. That's a good question, right? So right now, based on the process that we've done, the lower deck is permanent as a part-time use lane. And that was approved under different, I would say, environmental laws and considerations at that time. So I think that's something that we can work with the Department of Caltrans, who is a bridge owner, to evaluate whether that's something to be further considered in the future. But that particular, the lower deck would probably not be part of the upper deck project that we're talking about. Obviously, now when you do need to add a lane to a highway facility, there's the SB 743 has required us to look at potential VMT impacts, and that will be played out as far as the environmental process goes.
So there's no practical reasons. It could be a good idea to have a HOV lane in the lower deck. It's just not part of the scope of the project.
It is not currently part of the scope of the project.
Okay.
Obviously, because like I said, that was our initial approach was to relieve just that PM peak period congestion. And then secondly, of course, there's no, at that time, looking at that time, the bike path was planned for the upper deck, so that's where the focus has been. And again, I would say that having a barrier, a movable barrier on the deck is going to require some additional structural strengthening work if it remained there. So that's why we focused all our efforts on the upper deck at this point.
Great, thanks.
Community Member Riley.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate the update. I guess, do you mind going to the pie chart that you had on here about the days that it was being open? I didn't quite understand how. Could you explain how that makes sense?
I think the missing information here is there are certain holidays that we decided that we open for bike path. Like for instance, the 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year's is going to be 24/7 bike path for that 2 weeks. So that's kind of like how the pie chart kind of like at the end of the day, if you count the number of days, it's kind of like 50-50. Also kind of like certain holidays that we based off the data that we had in the past, like when we had like the most users and also like the least traffic. It's kind of like, for instance, I believe Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Okay, so weekends and holidays and all that, and I guess there will be something on a website somewhere to let people know where.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, the website's posted. It's posted on our website and also signs out in the field.
gotcha. Okay, I was going to ask about signs. You had the QR code for the GPS tracking for the shuttle. Is that posted on both ends so that people that are there physically can
It's
scan
on
it?
that,
Okay.
the signage, the blue signage is posted out there, and there's the QR code in there as well.
I appreciate the updates on the Richmond projects. Are there improvement projects also scheduled for Marin?
Not that I know of. I believe there are few improvements, but all these path connections projects are led by the locals. So they have, in the Marin County, I think that's on the dotted lines on that map there. Those are the planned improvements. So I believe they're like in the process right now. Either they have a fully funding already or they're still pursuing funding. But I think the reason why we kind of like focusing our presentation on the 2 Richmond projects, because that's part of the BCDC permit conditions that we help fund the 2 projects that, path connections for the Richmond-San Rafael corridor.
And I'll just add as well, one of the elements that we're going to be working on with the cities and the CTA, so CCTA, WICTAC, TAM as well, is to continue to look for active transportation project funding. So we are meeting with our partners at least twice a year to strategize and find funding opportunities beyond the commitment, the $10 million commitment we have. And that's the status of those meetings, and the meeting minutes are actually going to be reported back to BCDC.
So just going to the open road tolling, I mean, I think this is hopefully going to be a great improvement to the traffic and the backup that happens here. I mean, in my mind, this is kind of the main culprit. And do you know, so this is an interim implementation of it, that it's going to be starting in 2026. Do you know what that entails? Does that entail also getting rid of, I mean, the biggest problem is widening out and then having to merge back into the, lanes that are available. Will that part be addressed, I guess, in this interim?
Yes. So I guess the reason why we're using interim names is because we're using interim toll gantry. But at the end of the day, the public's gonna see really the biggest improvement is we are getting rid of the toll booth, and we are making the lane line more efficient. Like, as you all know, like the approach has 3 lanes prior to the toll booth, and it merged out to like 7 lanes, even though right now I think we're only open 5 lanes. And then it merged down to 2 lanes on the bridge, right? So that's kind of like what you mentioned about the culprit, about like the bottleneck, basically, right? So under the open road tolling project, we are gonna have 3 lanes approaching, plus 1 lane from Stenmark Drive, so 4 altogether, which is gonna merge to 2 lane at the bridge. So it's gonna be more efficient.
And I guess I'm wondering, you had mentioned there was a 5% reduction in traffic throughput with the addition of the 24/7 access to the bike lane. I look at something like that and I'm like, that's an okay trade-off for adding miles of Bay Trail that are always accessible. And as we move away from evaluating everything on levels of service, we're really looking at providing alternative transportation modes. We're looking at ways of encouraging people to take transportation modes that aren't just in cars and stuff. 5% isn't that bad of a trade-off to me personally. Obviously, not everyone agrees with that. Will 24/7 access on the Bay, on the bridge, be evaluated after? Will it also have a chance to be evaluated after the change to the overhead open road tolling? I think that, again, in my mind, that's one of the biggest culprits of the backups. I think the bike lane sometimes got unfairly blamed for the backups. And so I'm wondering, will it have a chance to be evaluated once these changes are here? Will we ever go back to that and get some more data on that?
I think there's a couple things in that, right? There's the pilot effort that we're doing, and this pilot, what we're collecting over the next few years, will inform some of those discussions with the BCDC. And, obviously, a 24/7 path is one of the alternatives that's still in consideration at the end of this pilot process. That's number one. Number two, there's also, parallel to that, there is that long-term project that we've talked about that is starting the environmental phase. I can't speak, Caltrans is currently the environmental lead for that project. I can't speak on their behalf, but, it would be likely that the environmental process needs to consider the various options on the bridge itself. And so there'll be more discussion and analysis there as well. And hopefully over the next year or two, some of the information that we collect in terms of operating this arrangement could also be used to inform the environmental process.
Do you know about how much this pilot costs annually, just to move the barrier, to run the shuttle? Do you have a number?
The shuttle's about $500,000, $400,000 to $500,000 a year. So we have a 3-year contract, so about $400,000 to $500,000 to operate the shuttle. We were doing the barrier moves previously, probably at at a cost of, a couple $100,000 a month for the basic cleaning. And then adding this on, I would say, Ingrid, just off the top of my head, is probably $400,000 to $500,000 more for the additional barrier moves. So if you do the math, we're likely looking over $1 million.
A month?
A year,
Yeah,
annually,
okay.
excuse me.
Gotcha.
Sorry, that's
That's to move the barriers?
So we have the barrier moves plus the bike shuttle. I mentioned the bike shuttles are in the 500,000 range, plus or minus. So we'll see how it plays out. I think the current barrier moves are, like I said, a couple $100,000 a year, and then the additional moves that we're adding, which is 2 or 3 times more moves every month. So that's 600, I don't know, 500,000. Like I said, we can come back with a specific number.
Okay. I'll be wrapping up here shortly. Sorry. So I also had questions about the HOV lane. I'm not expecting you to have a good answer for this, but how do we enforce that on a bridge where enforcement can't really set up and look at and ticket people, violators, anything like that? How do we stop that from just becoming another third lane?
I think that's a
basically?
question that the entire region and the state is asking. That's a definite challenge that we have in terms of HOV violators. I will say that we have ongoing conversations with the Highway Patrol to enforce occupancy. We are also looking at newer technologies as well to allow us to be able to do that. We do need to be careful, just given the current laws that are in place in terms of making sure that we don't violate any privacy or other considerations as it relates to some of the newer technologies that can help with automated enforcement to supplement what the California Highway Patrol is doing. But yes, that's something that we're going to continually working on.
Sure. How does this pilot get evaluated? This current configured, the modified pilot?
That's a great question. So we are working with BCDC and UC Berkeley to establish the thresholds, and that's something that we are anticipating to go back to BCDC in the spring of 2026 to present our methodology. So that's something that we can come back and report on. But I think you can see past reports that were produced. The past report produced from UC Berkeley are some of the particular metrics that we would looked at. But I think there's also opportunities to, that we've learned over the last few years to add additional potential metrics and thresholds for in terms of whether pilot was successful. But we're currently not there ready to present in public what they would be. But we are required to go back to the commission in 2026 to discuss those.
Okay. Thank you all for coming here again, presenting and providing all this information. I did just want to reiterate, I love that you all are looking to do more engagement. I'm hoping that if there are future policy changes or recommendations that would go to the CCTA board, that we would be given the opportunity to advise as we are. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I'll go to Committee Member Lannis and then to Vice Chair Weeks.
+1 to the comment on advising CCTA from this agency. I have a couple of comments, bear with me. One, there's a mention about access with this project. This project does not provide more access, it limits access. It is not better for all modes of transportation. It's maybe better for one. The UC Berkeley path study was not conclusive to close the trail. Still, that was the decision. This is also part of the Bay Trail. It's been going on for decades. It's a 500-mile plan to circumvent the entire 9-county Bay Area. And we finally got to close that gap. It's hard to close certain harder gaps. This is one of them. This shuts down that portion of Bay Trail that connects Marin County, Contra Costa County. It is a pedestrian path as well. It's not merely a bike path. I think that words matter, so I wanted to clarify and bring that up. I have a question also. As far as the throughput, did I hear that there's a 5% reduction when the trail is open? Throughput for cars, right? What would be the improvement in throughput when the Richmond Somerville Forward projects? What's the expected throughput or improvement on it or projection when these projects are in place? Would that compensate or?
It's not, because like the throughput, the reduction in throughput is on the bridge, and the reason why is because of the barrier that butts up against the number 2 lane. So people tend to kind of like drive slower or things like that. But with the improvement with Richmond Somerville Forward, it's only improving the approach. So it doesn't have anything to do with the bridge. So it won't help.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. How does these go with the goal of reducing vehicle miles traveled?
So are you talking about the westbound improvement project itself or the modified pilot?
Modified pilot.
Well, I think that's a good question right now. I think right now, the modified pilot is exactly what it is to allow us to collect the information to inform a long-term project that could encourage potential reduction in vehicle miles traveled by providing better transit and HOV access to the bridge.
I think to add to that, for this current condition, the modified pilot, we don't increase any vehicle miles travel. The reason why is because it's still 2 lanes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And HOV would be where the breakdown lane is now, right?
In
the modified pilot,
in the future, the HOV lane is going to be on the number 1 lane.
which is,
Far left.
okay. So it'll be HOV, regular, and breakdown?
So I think maybe if you want to take a look, I think there's 2 conversations, two different alternatives that we're looking at. See, today, as you know, right, today, as it stands today, number 1, the far left lane, number 1 lane, the number 2 lane, that's the 2 general purpose lanes. And then the number 3 lane, so-called, or emergency shoulder, splits its time between emergency shoulder and the multi-use path. Okay. Now, what Caltrans and BATA and what we're all studying is what would that look like in the future? And as you mentioned, a potential HOV lane or could be in the number 1 lane in the far left. The number 2 lane would be a general purpose lane. And then the number 3 lane would be a potential travel lane for general purpose traffic through Monday through Thursday or whatever hours that we come out of it. And then the path would be then reopened in that number 3 lane, which is the far right that you can see there.
I also think that the icons are maybe backwards. Like we should be looking at the back of a bus and the back of cars.
Yes.
The icon of the bus is looking from the front instead of like looking to the back. Yeah, we got that comments all the time.
Yes.
But this is kind of like facing westbound direction.
Yes.
Thank you. Some comments around the shuttle. There's no service overnight. The van is not ADA accessible. Again, talking about access, there is a limitation on access for a lot of folks. I ran into somebody who was really excited to get a job in the Somerville side, testing routes. In Richmond, we ran into them at the Richmond BART station, and they were telling us how excited they were about being able to bike across to get to work. They've biked their entire life to get to work. And we're very sad to find out when I mentioned to them that that was the first week that the trail was closing, so they wouldn't be able to do it. And they were specifically testing the most optimum route that would be the fastest for them. And it turned out that taking the shuttle would take them longer. So it wasn't as good as they expected it. I would love to say thank you for bringing this information. I would love to hear more when you have more. I would love to, again, have a opportunity to have a say and take a position or vote on this, which has impacts on people biking and walking in Contra Costa, and we are the main agency for that. If anyone else wants to have a turn, I'll fix my comments in the meantime.
All right, next, Vice Chair Weeks.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, the 5% statistic you guys are quoting, is there any kind of margin of error for that sampling technique that was used for that? Because often if there is, there's a 2 to 3% margin of error on the statistic. And when I see a single digit percentage statistic, often there's a little bit of margin of error in there. Do you know?
I would say that we're fairly confident just because those are the traffic sensors on the bridge that have been historically used by the department for over decades. So I think over a multiple year collection period, I think it's fairly significant for that particular figure. That is because like I said, counts are fairly simplistic in terms of being able to collect accurately.
Okay, so it's actual count, it's not a sample or anything
No,
like that?
it's based on continuous traffic counts that we see on the bridge.
Okay. And then just had me thinking that, my work for the city of San Ramon, where we do traffic calming for our neighborhoods, there's a perception of narrowing that we sometimes try to include in the roadway that reduces speeds just from the physical aspect of narrowing, not for the reduction of breakdown space. So has there been research into that, whether it's just a slowing of traffic based on the visual narrowing of the space, or whether it's actually for breakdown delays?
So I think, as you mentioned, I think that's part of what we believe is the issue in terms of reduction of throughput on the bridge itself, is the narrowing of the lanes and having elimination of the shoulder. That's, I would say the general, as you mentioned, and even on the city street, narrowing the lanes slows traffic down, adds apprehension to the drivers. I think that's the primary driver on a day-to-day basis. And then I think you mentioned from the emergency management standpoint, that's a little bit harder to predict, but that's when we do see the maybe more significant non-recurrent delays that we do see occasionally on the bridge itself.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking all these kind of in the weeds questions, it's not that in the weeds, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But is I want to make sure that, and what other members have said today, that, this continues to be a pilot.
Yes.
And we need to know the outcomes of these things. And, I heard both of your responses to the impacts of open rule tolling. And I think it'd be important to keep open the question on the full-time opening of the bike space on the bridge. Even if you guys don't think the direct cause of improved throughput is the open road tolling, if there is an increase in throughput, that is, let's assume there is no margin of error, 10% increase, then that basically eliminates the impacts of having the bike lane there. So, I want to continue to have the analysis done so that it is indeed a pilot. So if there isn't an improvement as a result of the change, and it's unfortunate that we're mixing the two things together, removing the bike lane and removing the tolling. But I would really like to have that analysis done later so that we know that either was an opportunity created to bring the lane back, or was there not? And just to add to the narrowing concept, is there, or has there been a discussion of if the lane was widened, the standard drive lane was widened by a foot, and the bike lane was narrowed by a foot. You know, is there a perception improvement there that would increase throughput but allow the bike lane to remain? You know, is there still geometry ideas that we could explore as we emerge towards a permanent solution as an alternative?
I think, and just in response to your comments, I think just overall, I think the best use of the footprint, the width of the bridge, I think will be in that conversation in the long-term project. Certainly want to make sure that we understand all the factors of potentially narrowing the bike path to less than potentially standard.
Right.
So there's some implications there, but I think those conversations would definitely happen as part of that, our efforts to develop the project. You know, I think also just in closing, you know, I appreciate your feedback, and I think, you know, our commitment to BCDC was to report frequently, and then, like I mentioned before, the thresholds and the metrics that we'd be using will be in further discussions at a future public hearing with them for them to adopt, so that we can have a potential pilot study that we could stand by together, that we all agree on at the end of this process.
Yeah, thank you for those answers, really helpful.
Can I ask a
Just to Councilmember Moriarty.
Sorry, just one point of order. Do we want to stop sharing just so we can see, so the viewers can see the people? Thanks.
Just a quick question about that 5% reduction in speed. You kind of alluded to it. You guys were saying that the narrower lane causes drivers to slow down a bit, and so it's reduced the throughput by 5% because drivers drive a little slower. Sometimes that's a good thing. We call it traffic calming. And faster isn't always better, and I was wondering, that 5% reduction in throughput is some reduction in speed. I don't know what miles per hour it equates to, but is that still above the speed limit?
It's tough, well, it's tough to say, but it would be potentially below the speed limit. You know, I think you make it, like I said, those are valid points, right? Typically, when you slow traffic down, you get more throughput, but it's also not just the absolute speed. It's just also the profile itself in terms of vehicles kind of slowing down and stopping. That also has an impact. You know, for those that may drive here in Contra Costa County, the Caldecott Tunnel, for example, is a good example of that, where you've noticed that there is a narrowing of the lanes as you approach the tunnel, and no shoulder. And then, of course, you get out of it, you do return back to a little bit more speed. Now, again, you do hit some backup as you get towards 680, but would be potentially a similar concept where you do have vehicles having a little bit more dynamic flow between the vehicles is potentially causing a little bit of that friction.
All right, Councilmember Wilson.
Thanks. To echo colleagues, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. I feel a little bit like when we're, talking about the modified pilot, and then there's also this potential thought of a long-term solution of an HOV lane, and then two general purpose lanes. Maybe one of those also serves as a breakdown lane. It seems like there's already thoughts about kind of permanently removing the bike lane from at least the Monday through Thursday schedule, with that sort of long-term solution in the back of the mind, as opposed to really letting the pilot and the information that you gather during the pilot drive where this goes. So I don't know, I would just encourage you to think about some of these other solutions and really look at the information from the pilot. I mean, perhaps it is that, removing the tolls, and maybe there's an opportunity to narrow up the Bay Trail a little bit, to be able to provide more of a full-time Bay Trail crossing on the bridge, rather than kind of having this long-term solution in the back of the mind there.
Okay, okay, we'll go to Byron.
Yeah, I also along the lines of slowing down traffic, I just would be interested to see whether a wider lane with less traffic calming results in more accidents, which would, kind of reduce the need for increase the need for a breakdown lane. So I would encourage you to kind of keep that, or tell UC Berkeley to keep an eye on that. I would love to hear how it's affecting the number of accidents, if people can go through faster. And then you said it was a 5% reduction in throughput. My understanding is that translates into 1 minute. Is that correct?
1 minute from what point? I think that's the question, right?
1 minute to get from the toll booth to the other side?
You want to answer this one? It's difficult to say.
Yeah, I can't remember the number for sure, because I remember UC Berkeley researcher, they presented that at BCDC back in the summer about like what correlates to the, you know, how many minutes, right? Like you said. But I don't think it's 1 minute. I would say maybe it's about like 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. But I can't remember on top of my head. But like David mentioned, it depends on like where you kind of like measure it from, right? It's like the whole 4 miles of the bridge only, or is it includes the approach, and things like that?
While this whole discussion was happening, my understanding was that it was around 1 minute. Is that, Danny, do you have any insight onto? Okay, so because what I'm trying to get at here is if you pick up 3 to 5 minutes with the new toll plaza, how would that affect your, like what percentage increase would that be in throughput? So that's, and then the other thing I wanted to raise is if you're considering the need for a new bridge, is that part of the thinking on long-term solutions? Because clearly the current, you know, clearly, you know, the Bay Area is struggling with how to get everyone who wants to go across this bridge over it 24 hours a day.
So I think I could touch on the discussion of about a new bridge. I think let's be very clear, cost of a new bridge is very substantial. Something that the local taxpayers and toll payers will not be able to support, number one. Even modifying the existing bridge itself is fairly cost prohibitive just because of its age and the amount of engineering work and construction that it would take potentially to add a bike lane. However, with that said, I think we all recognize that as the bridges age, we do need to think about the long term. And I think in the future, and we've discussed this with our CTA partners, that we will start thinking about that as part of our upcoming Plan Bay Area process. And, you know, bridges, you know, we would replace a bridge if the function of the bridge needs to change, number one. That potentially could happen, but that's many, many years out. And then secondly, we're in a very seismically active area too as well. So I think that's part of our mindset, but I think in the interim right now, I don't think that's not in the cards currently. And so we do want to make sure that we make the best use of the available structure that we have.
Thank you.
Committee Member Lannis.
Yeah, it'd be good to have it when in a future info share to have that information around time savings. In the mention of the projects that are funded in Richmond, the two projects are the Wellness Trail Phase 2 and Complete Streets project. These are the roughly $10 million that have been allocated. These two projects were fully funded already. They were going to happen regardless, as far as I understand. And it is, I think, misleading to claim that Caltrans, MTC are doing these in efforts to connect to the bridge. this does not directly connect to the bridge, while it is adjacent, and that is fantastic. And I'm a local to Richmond, and I love these projects, and I'm all for them. Also, it's important to have full networks. If you disable a portion of the network, then you don't have a network. So it's important to have continuity. It's fantastic that these projects are happening and being funded, but if you're shutting down the trail partially, then you're discouraging people to use it. And again, this is still Bay Trail. Long-term plans are being crippled. As far as the van and the trailer, it would be fantastic to have a schedule that is set. The tracking system is wonderful. Kudos, very well done. Live tracking is really good, but I still don't know what time I can get on or off. And that makes it impossible for anyone who reliably needs to go to work at a certain time to predict that. I understand there's traffic, but still, there should be a schedule. I hope that that can be published. And there's a concern that the Richmond Centerville forward projects that are there to improve delays are running at the same time that the trail is closed. And there's a point that can be made that because the trail was closed, things got better, when in reality, these other projects are improving traffic. So I'm hoping that that will be studied accordingly and separately. And ultimately, I think that, well, I'd like to ask a question and then kind of a conclusion. The question is, when we talk about throughput, what are we talking about? Improving throughput.
Vehicles per hour.
All right. I think that's where we're looking at this issue wrong. We're looking at trying to get more vehicles through. It's not about vehicles, it's about people going from point A to point B as fast as possible, as safely as possible. And I think that the problem is that we're looking at the issue the wrong way. It's not going to be fixed by add 3 more lanes to it with a new bridge. You're not going to fix the issue. I think we need to look at alternatives, alternative modes to move people from point A to point B, not just through that bridge by car. I think that the trail is one of those solutions, being open 24/7, because it takes cars out of the bridge. It makes more space, one less car, more space for those who do need to drive with cargo to perform a job on the other side. I think that's where the solution lies, and I hope that we can go in that direction moving forward, not just looking at how else can we cram more vehicles in this limited space. Thank you.
Just in clarification, right, vehicle hours is the standard metric that was used in the UC Berkeley report, but I think, just want to make sure that's clear that the MTC data, we do look at people throughput. That is actually the really genesis of all our forward projects that I've talked about. So Richmond Bridge Forward is an example. We have similar initiatives for the Bay Bridge, Dumbarton Bridge as well, where we are trying to get more people across, and that's a metric that we're trying to move towards. I think one thing I want to mention, that it is very challenging to count people, reliably, right? Some similar to your comment about HOV enforcement too as well. But we do, that is a strategy that we're pursuing, and that's part of the Plan Bay Area moving forward, is how to get the most out of the system and actually move the most people out of the system across different modes.
Are there considerations for a ferry to go across? Are there considerations for public transit, mass transit?
I'm not aware of any ferry discussions. I can't speak to that, but I think part of our agency's viewpoint is to continue to work with our transit partners to provide effective service. So I will say that there will be discussions with Golden Gate Transit and AC Transit to make sure that we can provide the best service possible across not only the Richmond Bridge but also the Bay Bridge and Dumbarton and San Mateo bridges.
As long as we continue to improve access through the bridge for one mode of transportation, that's not a solution. You will continue to get more throughput. If you do, that is induced demand. It does not solve the issue. Looking at the other alternatives, then it's a more serious long-term solution, I think, for all modes.
And I think I just want to clarify something. The reason why that we kind of want to continue study for this pilot extension for another 3 years, the main thing is not just because of the reduction in the throughput. That's one of the factors. But the main reason was really for the emergency response, because we saw that there's like an increase in emergency response time during peak period, where it's like the cars is literally stopping on the bridge, and then there's like no way for the emergency response to get into the scene, right? So that's kind of like, so the reduction in throughput is not really the main reason why we want to do and continue this pilot.
All right, Community Member Riley.
I think we're having a long discussion because this is the first time it's been here. I want to
that's
encourage you
fair.
all to come back. I don't think the next subsequent meetings will be as
No, we appreciate
as
it.
detailed.
We appreciate having us here.
So as far as like, I guess emergency service and all that, why is it then so important to have the breakdown lane on the top deck, but then not on the bottom?
Well, I can start, David, and you can chime in. So the reason why, because on the lower deck, there are 3 lanes, right? If like one lane is blocked, you have 2 other lanes to get by. But on the upper deck, if one lane is blocked, you only have 1 other lane to get by. So that's why it's make it even more challenging.
All right. Any other questions or comments for staff here?
One more really quick one. So in Alameda, they've put in a ferry between Jack London Square and Alameda. I mean, it's a much shorter distance. There were probably many more complications to adding a ferry between Richmond and Marin County. But it's just something I would hope MTC would look at, because that's been very successful. Every time I've been on it, there's lots of bikes on it. It just goes back and forth, and there's a schedule, and people love it. You know, and this is sort of in lieu of a bridge between Oakland and Alameda, which has been on the table for years. So it does provide some measure of predictability and, you know, just access for people to get across the body of water.
Thank you.
All right. Any other final comments before we move to public comment on this item? All right. Deanna, have you received any public comment on this item?
We have not received any written public comment on this item.
Okay. With that, I think this concludes this item. So thank you for that presentation. We hope to see you at a future CBPAC meeting soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay. We'll move on to other business / information sharing. Is there any items that committee members or staff would like to share with the group here? Go ahead, Committee Member Byron.
So we did receive in our comments some emails from people in Richmond Annex who were concerned about very recent accidents, serious accidents on San Pablo Avenue. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that I could communicate with them. Maybe send an email to to the committee and have it be forwarded to them. Because I would like to let them know that there's a group, El Cerrito Richmond Annex Walk and Roll, that is advocating for safer streets on San Pablo and at this intersection.
Yeah, feel free to send me something and I can work internally through admin to figure out how that communication would normally go about.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other committee member or staff items? Committee member Lannis.
In addition to that, a woman was killed on Friday by a hit-and-run driver as she was walking across East 18th Street at Mary in Antioch. And Sunday night in West Concord, a pedestrian was killed by a hit-and-run driver on Monument Boulevard as well. Just bringing this up in hopes that we can do something as it relates to Vision Zero, specifically related to investments that can really move the needle.
All right, thank you. Any other committee member items they'd like to share? Vice Chair Weeks.
Just a short one. Looks like the Bollinger Overcrossing won an honor award at the ACEC California 2026 Engineering Excellence Awards competition. So thank you CCTA and everybody that gave input on this bridge. And we're looking to see if we can get more awards and more acknowledgement of the work that was done in this area. And we're looking to start looking for funding for the Crow Canyon Overcrossing next. So if you hear about funding sources or awards that you think that bridge deserves, please let me know. Check it out at night. The lighting system on that thing is amazing. And there's a schedule that goes throughout the year that in advance will tell you what colors are going to be up. So pick your favorite color and come during that time and check it out. Thanks.
All right, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the last item on the agenda, which is upcoming subjects for discussion. Do any committee members or staff have any items they would like to add to a future agenda?
I'd like to propose that we have a presentation on e-bikes. I can speak on that.
Okay, I'll work with Colin's CCTA staff on putting that on a putting that item on a future agenda. Any other items?
I just had a question about it. In what context? Like regulatory environment for e-bikes?
Yeah. Also budgets and programming.
Okay, any other items? Okay, Vice Chair Weeks.
I don't know if this is next meeting, but maybe, Colin, we could check back in about the bicycle incentives. I know in the old days, we used to have a pre-tax incentive that came down from the feds that was a certain amount for people that biked every day, and you could sign up for that and get that pulled out of your check pre-tax. That went away. So is there any movement on bicycle incentives? Is there a path we could look at about offering something in the county for incenting people to ride their bike to work? So just asking if we can look into it and possibly include if we find anything or can propose something. Would love to hear more about it. Does that sound good?
Yep, taking notes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Committee Member Byron.
Oh, this also doesn't have to be the next meeting, but I would love to have an update on Vision Zero for the county. I know that the committee was working on that, and so sometime in the next few meetings.
Okay, thank you. All right, any final items? Okay, hearing none, and I guess we'll move to the last item on the agenda, which is adjournment. So we will be adjourning at 12:35 p.m. And the next meeting is in, I don't know the exact date, January 2026. So.
Yes, January 2026. January 26th, I think it is.
Okay, thank you all.